today I want to show you how I make a mitred dovetail, or perhaps more accurately, the mitred shoulder dovetail. So I've started by preparing my two pieces. This is going to be the tail board, this is going to be the pin board. I've made them the same width. That's not important, but it just makes it a little bit easier when you're doing it the first time. I've also squared the ends, and you may be able to see they're slightly different thicknesses, because thickness doesn't really matter. So this is going to be the tail board, as I say, that's the pin board, and I want to put the mitre on this top edge. So first of all, I'm just going to mark that in pencil so I remember where it is. So that'll be a mitre like that, and then this one will join it like so. And that's just so when I'm going around marking these boards with the knife or with the marking gauge, that I don't put a thick gauge line through the board if it's going to be left in that section there. Okay, so the next thing then is to take the width of the pin board and mark it around the tail board. So I'll do that in the usual way, set my marking gauge, and mark it all the way round except for the side where the mitre is going to be. And I shall do this fairly hard, so hopefully it'll be a bit easier for you to see. So you can see I've gauged that thickness round, but just left the mitred end without a mark on it. And what I'm going to do now is join where that gauge line comes across to that far corner. Now, because my pin board is slightly thicker than the tail board, that won't be exactly 45 degrees, but it will be pretty close. So let's get that on there. And now I can mark for the tails. I'll mark the tails as though it's a normal through dovetail. One thing I like to do when I'm laying out for the tails is to leave the mitred end, which is this end, with a slightly wider half pin. So we'll leave that a little bit thicker at that end than that end. And then we'll just divide that up and put our tails in. Now we also need to use the thickness of the tail board to gauge around the end of the pin board. And we only need to mark, obviously, as with the other dovetails, along the two faces, not along the edges. Excepting where the mitre is going to be, which is I've got marked there with the pencil, I want to bring that gauge mark right to the edge so that I can then mark for the mitre cut. So where this gauge line comes up there, I need to join there to that opposite corner. Now, just before we start sawing out, we need to be a little bit careful. We've put our mitre here, so this piece is remaining, that piece has to go. This part wants to remain, and that part wants to go. So we're going to be cutting a mitred shoulder to where the tail is, and then the tail we're going to be cutting just a diagonal from this outside corner down to the bottom inside corner, and the rest of the tails are cut in the normal way. Of course, you could put a mitered end at both ends, in which case you just do the mirror image. Remember the side on the inside you need to remove, or need to go slightly deeper than you do on the outside because of the slope of the tail. There we go. We just need to clean that corner up and that corner, and then take out the middle waist. Transferring the tail marking out to the pin board, pretty much the same as usual. I've got the mitered side here, so they're matching up, and then I just line everything up and mark through with a knife. On the mitre end it's a little bit more difficult, but you can get through with a sharp pointed knife. And this dark wood I like to also go in with a pencil, so I can find that knife line a lot quicker. And mark the waist in, and this time when we're marking the waist in, again at the mitered end, similar sort of cut. We're just taking a corner out and we're leaving the rest behind. So the pin board then becomes removal of these two dovetail shaped pieces as usual, but also the removal of this internal corner up to the mitre line.